Problem number 26 on your summer assignment expected you to be able to graph y equals 2 plus the square root of 1 minus x without a calculator. My best advice is to do a problem like this thinking in terms of transformations. You could plot a few points, but sometimes that does not give you enough information. You really need to be able to predict and have a good idea what the final shape looks like. You could put in a couple of points to just check that it's reasonably accurate, but the final shape should be predictable using transformations. So let's have a go at this problem. The first step I would do is I would rewrite the equation, factoring out any coefficient of x or y that is not 1. Coefficient of x or y that is not 1. So do we have any coefficient of x, y that is not 1? Let's see, the coefficient of y, oh good, that's 1, but the coefficient of x is not 1, it happens to be negative 1. So let's do that rewriting. Y equals 2 plus the square root of, factor out negative 1, I get 1 minus, oops, no I do not, I get negative 1 plus x. Okay, rewrite one more time. Y equals 2 plus, and negative 1, I could just write a negative. And negative 1 plus x is the same as x minus 1. It looks a little more familiar that way. The next step is optional. You can write it as y minus 2 equals, just so that you can see everything is very consistent. And you can see what I've got is the graph of y equals the root of negative x that has two shifts. A shift, one right, so that would be horizontal, and a vertical shift of 2 up. You might actually recognize a vertical shift a little bit more readily without the by using the middle equation. Okay, so all you have to do now at this point is to come up with the graph of y equals root of negative x. Well, what graph do we know? So let's have a go at that. Let me change colors at this point as I start my graphing. Y equals root x is on your bright pink cheat sheet. It's a graph you've got to know, and it looks like this. There is y equals root x. So what will the graph of y equals root of negative x? What's going on? I have now had a reflection in the y-axis. Okay, replace x by negative x in the equation. That also happens in the graph, because if you multiply by negative 1, it's the same as dividing by negative 1. So x becomes negative x. It's a reflection in the y-axis. So now my graph is going to look like this. I've got a reflection in the y-axis. I'm now going to add my shifts. So with the shifts, the graph now looks like this. The point 0, 0 gets shifted 1 right and 2 up. And then I sketch my graph, and let's see, it looks something like that. It's not a very pretty graph. All right, at this point we can actually check some points, just maybe a couple. Let's check. I've got y equals 2 plus the square root of, and I would go back to the original way the equation was written, just in case I introduced an error when I did my rewriting. So when x is equal to 1, What will the matching y be? Y is equal to 2 plus the square root of 1 minus 1 is 2. So the point 1, 2 is on the graph. Good. Let's make x equals 0 to see what happens when I cross the y-axis. Y is going to be 2 plus the square root of 1 minus 0. That is 3. So the point 0, 3 is on my graph. And I could check some more, but I feel pretty good about this.